A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome in to One Giant Step. Ho, ho, ho. A Merry December to you and yous and yours. It's Shaun Morash here, Bryce Gelman here, at Shaun Morash on Twitter, at Bryce Gelman on Twitter and X. We are here previewing the New Orleans Saints, the New York Giants game. The Giants have 3 home games left. Oh, my God. And, of course, a situation here where the Giants are in danger of going winless at home, but that might be full-fledged on the table. A lot of Giants news and nuggets to get to, and, of course, we will close this show with our, fantasy player prop picks, the reality of how the Giants may find a way to win this game. Of course, the actual game picks. Bryce, the dust is cleared on Thanksgiving. We went through, let's just start here. First of all, hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well as well, Bryce. Let's start here, pal. The weekend that just was for the New York Giants following the loss to the Dallas Cowboys could not have basically gone worse for Joe Shane and any naysayer.
Yeah.
Leonard Williams comes into MetLife Stadium and has a pick 6 before any member of the Giants secondary has an interception this year. McKinney, by the way, continued to play good on Thanksgiving night. Julian Love is a part of a forced fumble, looks great Sunday, obviously. And Bo Nix wins another game on Monday night. It's a guy the Giants passed on. All while Jameis Winston loses a game but throws a bunch of yardage. That's a guy the Giants passed on in free agency in favor of Drew Lock, who they're starting this weekend. Russell Wilson is leading the 9-3 Steelers after they put up 41 points on the Bengals, a guy the Giants met with and said, no, we can't guarantee you a starting job. And I'm sure I'm missing some, but the bottom line is this. Either guys who have left here, even if we've agreed with it, and even if they were the right moves, like trading Leonard Williams was the right move, are doing well. Guys the Giants passed on at the quarterback position, I just gave you 3, are doing well and would have the Giants in a good position. Overall, even when the Giants don't play and their game is settled, they continue to look bad. I mean, by all accounts, this is the worst season of our lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, really? You'd say so? You think so?
I do.
I mean, I'd argue that in 2021 with the 2 quarterback sneaks, I think that was worse. I think Joe Judge bigger idiot than these 2. But yeah, it's negative story after negative story after unbelievable performance from former Giants. It's a perfect storm, Shaun. I do think 2021 is worse, but this is right up there for sure.
And the Giants right now, if you were wondering and you had tickets, and God willing, if you did, to the weekend of Week 17, the Giants and Colts at home. Art Stapleton reporting on Thursday morning. The Giants-Colts game was one of 5 games the NFL could have selected to move over to Saturday, December 28th. There will be a Saturday NFL tripleheader. Your games that were up for auction, if you will, the Broncos at the Bengals, the Cardinals at the Rams, the Chargers at the Patriots, the Colts at the Giants, and the Falcons at the Commanders were all the options. So they're going to pick 3 of those 5. Giants-Colts has been eliminated from the process and will take place on Sunday, December 29th, to the surprise of nobody. So you will not get a Saturday game. Look, if you care and you listen to the podcast, you should be aware of that. My guess is you're going to get that Falcon-Commander game, seemingly 2 teams who, if not both, one will be alive that weekend. I got to think Cardinals-Rams will be in the mix. Then between the other 2 games, you could get a Charger game in there. Or do they just opt for the Broncos and Bengals and assume the Broncos are going to be alive? Maybe that's the game that starts it off. But that's your NFL around the horn. Giants-Colts will stay put. Now, we did all the house cleaning. Here we are. Again, we tape these preview pods on a Thursday. We're taping this on Thursday, December 5th. So if you're listening this, thank you again for downloading, subscribing to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. Maybe you're walking the dog. Maybe you're running around in the car. Got us on that car play. Whatever it is, we thank you. But if you're listening and something sounds like old news, just understand that that's where we're coming from. Anything and everything can change with this Giant injury report. But we were told the Giants are going with Drew Lock on Sunday versus the New Orleans Saints. Drew Lock, of course, gave the Giants nearly with a touchdown run, but then handing it off to Tyrone Tracy, their first lead since October 6th. But Drew Lock also gave the Giants 2 brutal turnovers that lost the game to the Dallas Cowboys. Bryce and I both in our reaction pod, if you want to go back and listen to that, thank you very much. Or if you did, thank you very much. Both were in favor of DeVito still has to be the guy. Those Lock turnovers were unacceptable. They're going to start Drew Lock. Now, from what I have been told, this is a legitimate Tommy DeVito injury, meaning they don't view him at full health. And I think there's a couple reasons why you go Lock here. But I think if DeVito was truly fully healthy, the organization would prefer to start him because they did elect to go to him before Drew Lock to begin with. But I think they're going to still try to dress DeVito like they did emergency situation. I think he could function at the ability of quarterback, but I think he's going to have trouble if he wanted to getting that ball down the field. I think this forearm injury is a big deal, and it is not recovered the way they thought. So rather than waste time and go with the game time decision stuff, you know what? Just give Lock the full week of first team reps. Have him as prepared as possible. Remember, that was a knock last week on Thanksgiving that, you only had one day to really prepare. Well, guess what? You're a backup quarterback. You should always be prepared. Yeah. I hated that. So we're going to get our taste of Drew Lock, and we're going to live with a couple of the ups, the erratic play. That's Drew Lock was who he was in his career, and you're going to probably live with a bad turnover or two, and like it or not. Now, here's the benefit, Bryce. At least I know he's willing to do and get the ball to Malik Neighbors at all costs, as we saw a million targets for Malik Neighbors, which, look, that's the fun left in this year, right, is watching the rookies develop. So let Lock air it out to Neighbors. Here we go, Bryce.
I mean, I could have been the quarterback in that game against the Cowboys. It would have gotten the ball to Malik Neighbors at least 10 to 15 times after what he had to say.
With Michael Parsons in your face? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still throwing the ball every time. This is the perfect storm in terms of tanking. I know we're going to talk about it. I know we're going to get into tanking, but I think all the injuries that have happened, you're never rooting for injuries, but all of these guys that have gotten hurt, I mean, but I think with the exception of Dexter Lawrence, have something to prove, like a Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson's not going to go out there. He's not going to half-ass things. Jermaine Illuminor, who's now hurt. It just doesn't seem like I don't know if he might play.
Those guys yet. Just stick to the quarterback. Okay, because there's there's a better setup for that.
But there's a perfect storm in terms of the quarterback play with the idea of Tommy DeVito having a forearm injury. Mm-hmm. Does Drew Lock give you the juice to go on a stretch here down the stretch run of the season? I don't think so. I don't think he does. Did Tommy DeVito? I think he did because of what we saw last year. Drew Lock does not provide you with the spark that I think Tommy DeVito can provide you. So I listen. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get to it. But I do think that all of this has led up perfectly to a Drew Lock start in which hopefully he throws 2-3 picks and the Giants continue on this losing run. But
we'll see. With Lock, it's all about the turnovers, but nonetheless, you don't even get the fun of Tommy DeVito. Not that basically was existent versus the Bucs game. They got blown out, and it felt like there were more Buck fans anyway. So we never really got materialized where like fans were driving to the stadium and go, "Yes, we get the DeVito mania." Like we maybe thought that didn't really happen with Tampa, but I still would rather see DeVito play because I'm going to come back. Does he have a place here as a backup quarterback in the NFL? How could I say he doesn't? Everybody the Giants let go of seemingly gets better elsewhere. So why wouldn't I think DeVito, if they let go of him, would get better? I'd rather see him play a little bit. Lock does nothing for me. But you know what? The Giants had a lead in that game. It probably also is something, if you're flipping a coin, if DeVito's not 100% healthy and can't give it his all, but you're still leaning towards trying to play him, that was a lot. We pointed to this, right? At a bare minimum, the locker room and the team didn't quit on Drew Lock, and they fought back in that game to the point all the defense had to do was make a stop. What message would it send to the room if you send a not 100% Tommy DeVito out there and bench Lock, who at least these guys felt like they had a chance late to win a game, albeit versus a bad team. But this is a bad team, too, in the New Orleans Saints. So neither here nor there. I get it. But to me, from what I gather, this is truthfully about a DeVito injury. Now, let's get to the other injuries that Bryce was trying to get to. The proverbial white flag has been waved. And I think the Giants have learned a lesson, and I think they've had an honest assessment. And the question is ownership fully on board with what's about to happen? We have used the words or the word tanking a lot. We're using it right now on the graphic if you're watching this on YouTube on the WFAN page. Thank you again for you viewing there. And NFL players, and I know this because I work with Tiki Barber every day. He hates the word tanking, and I understand that. Think about what these guys do. This isn't the NBA where Joel Embiid and Paul George can miss a million games, and it's neither here nor there. You get 17 games a year to put your full-on body on the line, and we're talking concussions, bruises, broken bones, the risk of muscle tears. Like, the NFL has such this high collision course of volatile play that makes the idea of asking players to go out there and not try their hardest. Some might make business decisions. We've seen that with the New York Giants. It makes it very difficult to do and very difficult for a coach to have that message to come across. However, how does a team actually tank? A team tanks by not putting the best active roster on the field that it possibly can. That doesn't mean the coach won't coach the team to win, and it doesn't mean the players that are playing won't play hard to win, and if they do, they do. But the organization can make a decision during a week when a season gets late that, makes your choice about what you view your long-term position to be. And I know I'm winding up here to get to the point.
Yeah.
We witnessed, and Hard Knocks has been a great, great tool for us to kind of take us behind what this team thought, and we still didn't see everything in the offseason. We know through Brian Daboll's own 2 words, through Joe Shane's son, how badly the Giants wanted Jaden Daniels. And knowing Jaden Daniels was probably going to Washington, we know they were trying to trade up badly with the New England Patriots, likely for Drake May. We know they targeted 2 quarterbacks. And what happened, despite everybody screaming and yelling that they didn't trade up, is they couldn't find a partner. They could have given the moon to New England. New England got an edict, I was told this from their owner. They were taking the quarterback. They were not going to move off that pick. And the Giants, by virtue of winning those games with Tommy DeVito, which was great, the coach played hard, the team played hard, they lost out on a quarterback. You have a regime here and a general manager and a coach who knows the position they're in now and the reason they stink, besides a lot of the personnel decisions, because the Joe Shane picks have been picked apart, and I get it. You cannot begin to even operate a team if you don't have an answer at the most important position, which is quarterback. And you can't afford in a draft that might be light on top-end quarterbacks to miss out on one and not be picking in the top 3. That's just the facts. That's where it is, and you can't always count on a trade-up. You can't. It's okay. So now I've said all that to say this. Just last week, Jermaine Illuminor took to Twitter, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing here, but told the fans, I haven't missed a game in years, which he hadn't. The short week got me just not enough time to heal up. I'll be back with you next week. That's what he told the fans. And we got an injury report on Wednesday in which Jermaine Illuminor's injury was listed. Deonte Banks, who missed the last week's game with the Cowboys, injury was listed. Evan Neal, who never stays healthy, had an injury listed. Remember, we've already lost Dexter Lawrence for the year, meaning the defensive tackle position is as light as ever. Raheem Nunez-Roches, who had a bit of a stinger. Guys can play the next week with a stinger. Sometimes it takes a week. Okay. He was listed. And Bobby Okereke, the lone now defensive captain or offensive or defensive captain that would have been left after Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, and Daniel Jones are now done for the year, was listed with an injury. Normally, when you get those injuries listed, Bryce, what do we hear? Questionable, probable. We'll see as the game goes on. We know the song and dance we get. Instead, every single one of those players on a Wednesday was given to us by Brian Daboll as, quote, week to week.
Yep.
That's the white flag.
Yep.
That's the smoking gun.
Yep.
That is the Giants observing players that I have no doubt have injuries. Remember, when you get to December in the NFL, if you don't have some kind of injury, you're either extremely lucky or you're lying. Like somebody has some kind of banged up thing. And if you were in a playoff hunt, like for instance, take the Denver Broncos who just won a game on Monday night. They're 8-5 or whatever. You think they don't have guys with similar injuries to Raheem Nunez-Roches, Bobby Okereke, or Deonte Banks that they're deciding on Thursday, Friday, or they're not handling differently. They ramp up and then they make those guys play, or those guys want to play because they're fighting for something. Right? You agree with that, Bryce?
Yeah.
The Giants are doing this, and they're not taking any chances because if a guy has a sliver of an injury, it's not about risking anything. It's about, then why would I force this? Because that guy's going to give me a better chance to win a football game that we are better off losing. We can't tell the league that. We can't ask the players that are on the field and healthy to do that because That is just morally wrong. There's gambling stuff. You can lose your draft pick as a result. But this is a legal version of tanking. The team is organizationally tanking because they see two quarterbacks that they visited with, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. They see where their record is. They see where the bunching of teams is. And the team cannot afford to win any more than one more game the rest of the year to get out of the top 3. That's it. That's it. They're organizationally tanking. And if you didn't think that injury report told me they were, should tell you they were. And Bryce, I'll leave it to you. I mean, do you disagree with any of that?
No, I mean, when you look at it, what you could characterize it as is organizational, like conservatism, like they're just playing things conservatively. You can't knock them for it. They're not doing it blatantly and saying we're trying to lose games.
No,
they're managing their roster conservatively. If a guy's hurt, you know what? We're going to give you the full, let's say there's a week to 2 weeks, recovery time for said injury. We're going to give you the 2 weeks. You know what? We'll give you a third week to recover from said injury. And I think that ultimately the Giants learned their lesson from last year, which was you're not going to get the players to want to lose, especially in a losing season like that, where at the time Tommy DeVito was named the starter. Was there any juice to that team? Was there anything to play for? Where was anyone showing up to games? That was what was given to them. And they took that in and they played their asses off for Tommy DeVito. They're not letting that happen. And I don't think that there's a problem with that. There may be some football purists out there who have an issue with that. There may be some Giants fans who want to win games. We've discussed this a million times. I still don't understand why there are people out there who think this way, because look at what that thought process gave you last year. So I think with all that aside, with all that being said, this is the right move. This is what a competent organization does. This is what an organization does that knows deep down they need a quarterback or they're screwed. So all the complaining, all the BSing in the media, by the fans, the complaining, we don't have a quarterback. Our quarterback sucks. Is this not going to get you a better quarterback? Is doing this not going to get you a better quarterback? Is this
Bryce,
not going to help you with
Bryce,
a better draft position?
This is where I got to step in and remind people of something else. We are so fixated on the quarterback, and I think I've said this on the podcast, but it's worth reiterating. Anybody who's complained that the team doesn't have enough talent yet and that doesn't like the job Joe Shaun, I can't defend that, right? Like the team failed miserably in the 2022 and 2023 drafts. You're forgetting if we get the top pick in the draft, I'm saying we as Giant fans, second pick, third pick, whatever, that they will have that pick in rounds 2, 3, and 4, obviously so on and so forth. But I consider those rounds where you can identify and find starting players to fill out other positions. The moment, and oh, by the way, you don't know if you're going to be really good next year, somewhere in the middle or whatever, but a first-round pick next year as well. You don't want to have to trade up if you don't have to go get a quarterback and give up huge assets that you need to fill other holes.
Can't.
So the tank is not just about assuring that you get the quarterback. The tank is about assuring you get the defensive tackle you need to play next to Dexter Lawrence at the top end of round 2, or, the cornerback that you've been dying for, or, the wide receiver to play next to Malik Neighbors. Whatever they decide to do with rounds 2, 3, or even next year's first round pick, you don't want to lose those by trading up for a quarterback if you don't have to. And how do you not lose those? By assuring you lose now.
Yeah,
so
and
let
me say this. Last year, their draft position 6 overall was not an accurate representation of how bad they were on paper last year in terms of talent. That's the thing. So when you lose more games, when you lose games you should lose, you get, an accurate portrayal in the draft order. You get where you're supposed to get. And the fact that, the Commanders were ahead of them, the Patriots, because of that game they won, the Chargers were ahead. These teams, especially the Chargers, with the quarterback already established, these are better teams. But the Giants had the 6th pick because they decided to go on a run, win 3 games in a row, meaningless 3 games. So the more you lose, and to your credit, I agree. I'd love to come out here and create a more engaging argument to this, but we have been in lockstep on this now for a year and a half. This is going back to we were talking in October of last year about tanking. This is not a new thing. This has now been 14 months of discussing whether the Giants should tank, whether it's moral, whether you agree, whether you disagree. Well, at this point, Shaun, if you don't agree, then you're not seeing the bigger picture. You are not seeing what is important for this organization. You are not looking at the future. You were looking in the short term. I get it. There are people who live and die with every Giant snap. If you want to live and die with every Giant snap for the rest of your life, I guarantee you it's going to be a lot easier of a pill to swallow next year, the year after, if they have Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
Without having to give up anything for it again.
And we'll worry about whether those guys end up being busts or not when we have to worry about it. But you have to take the chance to even put yourself in a position, because you could also look glass half full. You could find yourself Josh Allen or whatever. Now, there's two other sides to this coin before we get to our pick, fantasy reality, and all of that. Number one, the guys who aren't listed on the injury report and that are going to play. And you might be saying, well, Shaun, Bryce, if they're tanking, why are, and I'm going to throw a couple names at you, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, Tyler Nubin, Drew Phillips. Why are these guys playing and these other guys aren't? Well, I have an answer, because I think we could all agree outside of the offensive linemen, those are like the most important players. There's a couple reasons. A, you have to look in who knows how many incentives are achievable for guys. And B, if you're being real, you can't ask a bunch of guys who either have money on the line or development on the line to tank. So those other right? Neighbors, Tracy, Nubin, Phillips. The organization, I mean, these are rookies. These next 5 games are still like they need as many reps as possible and as much NFL experience. Crucial. You know, the college game is only 12, 13 games during a regular season. They want these guys to play out the season, and they're going to learn from this, right? I mean, they are the foundation building blocks of this team. A guy like Brian Burns, I'm not sure about incentives or anything, but this is a guy who, prior to the line has been banged up all year, but also is a guy they just traded a ton for. You want those stats to look up and get better the rest of the year that make Joe Shane look better. And also Kayvon Thibodeau, man, he was banged up. He was ascending before this. He's already missed games this year. He's playing to see if this team's going to pick up the 5th-year option and see what's going on. He has money on the line. So there's a reason those guys are not listed. Now, does that mean whatever, they don't play? Okay, that's where we're at. Now, the other side of the coin is this. I'm operating under the assumption that another conversation was had with ownership outside of when Mr. Mara told the world that these guys were safe. I'm operating under that assumption that these guys keep flying to Colorado and that now they have basically brazenly placed a bunch of guys on the week-to-week label. I'm operating under the assumption there was another sit-down, and we saw in Hard Knocks how much John Mara checks in with Joe Shane, where Joe Shane feels about these. Think about it. You don't think the conversations happen, hey, you flew to Colorado, you flew to Miami. What do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? Yep. Think about what we saw on camera with the owner talking to the general manager. And everybody the owner's too involved. You don't think that they've had conversations about what they've seen from these quarterbacks, and you don't think it was laid out to ownership? Hey, if we get this guy, and not just the on-the-field ability. John Mara knew how, right? He called Saquon Barkley the most popular player on the team, right? I'm not going to be able to stomach that. You don't think it was sold to him? Hey, if we get this quarterback, how many jerseys will sell? How many fans will be into this? You don't think it has been sold to the owner? This is the plan. And to get to here, hey, we really got to be picking first, second, third. I know that John Mara is a prideful man, and I don't think John Mara wants this team to be playing in front of a half-empty stadium. But I think if he really is trusting the regime to do the job, I'm assuming the regime has fought back and saying, this is the plan, this is what we have to do. And I'm guessing that when you list these guys week to week, the owner understands where it's coming from. Hey, we're going to try our best to win on the field, but if we don't, understand that this is the path we're going. Right? I mean, do you think that's outrageous?
Yeah, well, the one thing I want to add to what you had to say is that if these guys are healthy, they're going to play. You're not going to hold the guy out who's healthy, no matter who you are. If it's questionable, if you're a little dinged up, if you're week to week, you're going to be kept week to week. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not going to be a situation where they're going to force you back. But if you're healthy, you're going to play. And with the younger guys, of course, they're going to play 5 games left. It's crucial that these guys get as many reps as possible going into next year in second years where they're going to have to take a huge jump. But Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, if they're healthy, these guys are too prideful. That would be tanking, Shaun. That would be blatant tanking. They get fined for that. If a healthy guy was kept out, or there was some BS injury thrown out there that Brian Daboll said, hey, well, Kayvon's got a toe injury, like that's not actually there, that would be an issue. And I'd be upset about that. And I think a lot of Giants fans out there would be upset about that. That's not the case. Healthy guys are playing. The non-healthy guys are just getting held out just a little bit longer,
And that's where we're at. So without further ado, We have 5 more of these. It's fantasy versus reality. And what the hell's going to happen? A week ago, or I guess 10 days ago, whenever the hell we taped, I don't know. I've lost track of these preview pods because of that Thanksgiving game. Bryce and I both foolishly picked the Giants to win, though they were in the game. So I don't think we were that outlandish with our thought process. The game, we just didn't account for multiple Drew Lock turnovers that would change the game. The defense rose up. All right, I'm going to start it off. Fantasy reality. The New Orleans Saints and their defense, watching plenty of them this year and the way they've kind of hit the skids a bit. Bryce, rock, paper, scissors on this pick. I'm going Tyrone Tracy. We just alluded to the fact that, I went neighbors a week ago. I mean, take a pick, right? It's going to be one of the two. They're not going to have Theo Johnson throwing anymore. By the way, not having Theo Johnson out there in these picks tells me I think they're going to play a lot more blocking tight end stuff. And they're worried about Drew Lock turning the ball over, right? And my guess is this is a team that's probably going to want to churn up the clock, knowing that they don't have Dexter Lawrence out there defensively anyway. It's going to be a very boring, bland part of football. It's a good way to make yourself get over Saquon Barkley leaving and show yourself the ownership too. At 639 yards, needing 361 yards the rest of the way. I think I have that number right.
Yeah.
Tyrone Tracy having a 1,000-yard season as a rookie. Pretty nice meatball to serve to anybody who doubts what the Giants did with Barkley. Pound the rock with Tracy the rest of the way. Tyrone Tracy, my fantasy and prop play. I think they're going to, what do you get? 9 carries last week. I think he's going to touch the ball 13 to 15 times in this game and try to get that going. Now, you could say more, but they're still going to feed Devin Singletary a bit. He's a veteran. So I'm going third, and this could include pass catching. That's the fantasy pick. The reality stuff on how the Giants can win this game. Well, look, the reality is if they run the ball a lot and keep the Saints offense off the field where Alvin Kamara isn't gashing them for 1,000,000 yards, which could easily happen with no D tackles, sure, anything can happen. The true reality, though, is for the Giants to win any game the rest of the year without the guys that they're going to miss the rest of the year and knowing they're already depleted talent, like, if we're being real, you could stock, reload, say this over the next 5 weeks. The reality is they need 2 turnovers in this game, fluky or not. They haven't had a turnover from the secondary all year. Their only turnover came from linebacker Darius Muasau in week 1. Fumbles work too. They need, on a cold day, somebody to hammer the ball out of Alvin Kamara's hands. They need Derek Carr to throw a pick where we all drop our jaw and go, oh, wow, they actually did get an interception. And maybe one goes, maybe you get a defensive score in this game. So by no means am I telling you that's going to happen. I want to make this very clear if you're screaming as you're listening to this. But the idea of this part of this program is fantasy. How can the Giants win? Yeah. I mean, the same way they won the DeVito games last year, which was the defense was creating turnovers. If you take a couple possessions away and combine that with the fact that when you had the ball, you're taking time of possession away, that's just going to limit the amount of times the Saints can score, period. And you get a jump on a defensive score. Yeah, that's like the pathway to how the Giants can sneakily win a game. And when I'm looking at it the rest of the year, to me, the Giants aren't going to do this versus the Ravens next week. We're going to do a whole podcast where we're lying to ourselves if we think otherwise. They're not going to do this versus the Eagles in all likelihood. The Eagles probably going to be playing for the 1 seed that last week, by the way. Keep that in mind.
Yep.
So they're going to play hard that week. Like, there's 2 games left for me where I think the Giants could possibly have a moment like this. It's Anthony Richardson or Derek Carr turning the ball over. So that's kind of the reality where it is. So my game pick, man, I think Alvin Kamara is going to go for over 100 yards rushing in this game. And I think it's going to look ugly. I think it is going to be something like 17-3, 17-6 with a missed extra point at halftime. And I think the Giants are ultimately, going to fight as much as they can, but not have enough talent. The reason I'm not going for like total debacle blowout is that the Saints stink. Olave's out. And I think that they're going to just run the ball like crazy, where it's going to limit time and everything. I think the Saints score 24 points in this game. The Giants are lucky to muster up, I wouldn't even be shocked they don't get in the end zone. It's like 24-12, and they kick 4 field goals long ways from something like that. So I think the Saints are going to cover the spread. It's not going to look pretty. Give me 24-12. We don't even get in the end zone. That's my pick.
I can't stand you. Every single thing that came out of your mouth was what I had planned. So I'm not going to.
You don't have to reinvent
no, I know.
Wheel. The fans listening know where we're at in this year. So I mean,
there's no need to be controversial here. There's no need to to go outside the box. My fantasy pick is Tyrone Tracy. When you look at the Saints and this team, and their run defense and their recent results, teams that have won, teams that have had success against the Saints offensively have run the ball extremely well. You look at a game against the Browns. Jameis Winston threw for 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. They lost 35-14. You want to know what Nick Chubb did on the ground? 11 rushes for 50 yards. You're going to have to run the ball. You have to establish the run against this Saints team to be able to win. And Tyrone Tracy is going to eat in this game. Hopefully he does. And I'd like to see him get to 1,000 yards this year because it's going to shut up a lot of haters that have been, I'm sure in your mentions, I'm sure Eagles fans. I mean, that's a different story for a different day with those Eagles fans after what you did. But no, there's a lot of discourse out there that the Giants made the wrong decision still. I don't know why. It dumbfounds me. But Tyrone Tracy is going to, I think, put his best foot forward over the course of these last 5 games. I think it starts here. So game pick, the Giants win this game if they run the ball well. I really think it's that simple. And also, I mean, they're going to need a turnover. They're going to need 2 turnovers. Yeah. They're not good enough as it stands to win a game outright without game-breaking plays. Yeah, like they're going to need some crazy they're going to need some absurd BS where Scott Hansen's like, look what the Giants just did. Like
Smith Morsenet returns a punt for a touchdown, right?
That's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take in this game. And listen, the Saints are a bipolar team. Like they're like defensively, their metrics not great. They're the worst team, or actually they're the best team at preventing 4th down conversions. But they also allow the 3rd most yards per game and the 2nd most yards per play. The Giants are going to need a few big plays in this game. That being said, I don't think Drew Lock wins you the game. I think Tyrone Tracy can win you the game. Drew Lock, like what do we expect from him? What do we expect from him in this game? Like
last and Azudu a tackle, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think best case scenario, he throws for 200 yards and a touchdown. That's best case scenario. Like, he's not throwing for 300 yards. I mean, I know what Jameis did 2 weeks ago against this Saints defense. I don't know. I think the Giants, they're going to lose this game. I hope they lose this game. And my score is 24-10. I'm going to give you something else. I'm going to give you, you know what? The Giants are going to score 9. I'm going to go 20-9. I think I gave that score a couple weeks ago. I don't care. It's similar to what you said. Listen, the Giants in this game, I just need to see a turnover. I need to see something. This is getting infuriating. This is now the one thing each week by week, that might be frustrating me the most. Besides all of like the stupid discourse surrounding the quarterback situation, surrounding everything out there, Leonard Williams going off, Saquon Barkley every freaking week. It's this. Last year it was an embarrassment of riches. They were getting turnover after turnover after turnover, but the defensive metrics didn't look good. This year, it's a combination of both, Shaun. 5+ yards per rush allowed from the Giants this year. By the way, this is becoming a concerning trend, not only just this year under Brian Daboll. Listen, I did a little deep dive. 2022, 5.2 yards per rush allowed. Last year, 4.75. Like, this is becoming concerning. This year, they're 32nd in the league, dead last. You need to tackle. These guys don't tackle. So that's frustrating. And just the idea that they can't get a turnover. I don't think that's going to change this week. They're going up against a top 5 running back in the NFL. It could get ugly. I think they keep it relatively close, and 20-9. That's my game pick.
Well, there you have it. And by the way, Giants, the season might be over. The season might be in the tank. We went well north of a half an hour in recording, which is not something you would think for a December podcast in a game you expect to lose with a tanking team. At Bryce Gelman, you can find him on Twitter X. You can find me at Shaun Morash. I'll be back, Big Blue Kickoff live on the Audacy app, WFAN live 7 to 8 a.m. So take your calls there. If you're listening, you want to call in any point that we made on the podcast that you want to hear from me and John Schmelk about there. Great. Have at it on Saturday morning. We want to thank you, everybody, of course, from downloading, subscribing. Some point Monday morning, you'll find this little podcast recapping the game. Who knows what the hell happens in the locker room post game? Hopefully they stays together. We'll cover it all. We'll cover it all. Thank you for downloading and subscribing to One Giant Step. Everywhere podcasts are possible, available, whatever. Enjoy your holiday shopping. Enjoy your cookie bake-offs. And enjoy Giant football. Have one giant, or thanks for taking one giant step with us, everyone.